7 regional technical cooperation projects benefiting growers, scientists, and other actors throughout Latin America, the Caribbean, and Spain. The Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, the specialized agency for agriculture of the Inter-American system, supports the efforts of member states to achieve agricultural development and rural well-being. I offer the floor to Eugenia Sai, Executive Secretary of Fontagro, and Federico Bert, lead consultant at ICA, who will be the moderators of this event. Thank you very much, Leandro. Welcome everyone to this second cycle of webinars. Today, one of the matters that at least personally is of great interest to me is technology focused on cattle and beef. And with this outstanding panel of experts, people that are forward-looking in leading to examine all those new innovations that will allow the sector to have more markets and grow. At Fontagro, for several years, we have been trying to create this opportunity for dialogue with producers, associations of producers, entrepreneurs, and different actors that make up the agricultural and agri-food sector. We are 15 different countries, 14 in Latin America, as well as Spain, which since 1998, as Leandro was saying, we have been working in collaboration to work on the development of knowledge and innovation to have agri-food systems that are ever more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive. This year, thanks to our link to the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, we have opened up this opportunity, and we have invited several actors. I would like to highlight the support of my colleague Federico Bert, producer, entrepreneur, leader, visionary leader that has been with us at these events, and with whom we work hand in hand at Fontagro to see how to help the region learn more about these new digital technologies and add this grain of sand so that producers can have access to technology and learn more and achieve more benefits. Federico. Well, thank you very much, Eugenia. It is a pleasure. Welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure to come across you all again. As Eugenia and Leandro was saying, this is an opportunity for us to speak to protagonists, as is the title of the presentation today, to talk about digital technologies. From Fontagro and ICA, we understand that digital technologies will help make a positive transformation in agri-food systems, and we want this to occur in a dynamic and inclusive manner. So here we are generating these opportunities for exchange, as Eugenia was saying. We will focus today on livestock and technologies for livestock. After the first question, you will notice she is fascinated with cattle raising, and I'm sure she is going to have many thought-provoking questions. At ICA, we work with all 34 countries of the Americas, members of the organization, trying to help develop agriculture and rural development. And today we focus on digital technology and livestock, and we will try to focus on how digital technologies in livestock can help develop production that is so important for most of the countries, both today as well as in the future for all countries of the Americas. We will see today through our guest panelists, we will talk about productivity, traceability, and sustainable cattle raising. So without further ado, thank you, Eugenia, once again. Thank you, Leandro. Thank you to the panelists. And the floor is yours for questions. Thank you very much. First of all, statistics. In the last few years, the world consumed 322 million tons of animal protein, all the different types of protein. And in the region, we have 407 million heads of cattle. This is a very important sector. This is a challenge for science and technology to see how we can work ever better. From science, we have the possibility to achieve greater knowledge. We do so, we develop a lot of innovation, and you are key persons because you have brought together elements of science, transformed these into technology, and you have applied them directly to the sector. I have a series of questions throughout all this process and the extensive experience you have. What is the value proposition you add from each one of your businesses? What do you think the response of the producer is? How were you able to ensure this switch so that producers could bring in all these new technologies? I open up the floor, Ignacio, Diego, Sixto, and Juan Martin. We would like to hear you. Thank you. Okay, you mentioned me first. I'll be the icebreaker. In our case, for us, it was quite a discovery uh, right on the way to see the different technologies that were attractive to the different producers. So I know we love our product, yes, and that is something very interesting. On the way, we realized, well, we verified the type of producer, the type of production, or the type of producer that would be interested in something like this. And we were learning on the way as we advanced. And we wanted to see the choke point uh, of in our perspective as a startup that was really causing the biggest hurdle and was the biggest concern for producers. So that basically ended up changing a bit the products that we were developing and offering and the universe of producers that we were serving. We discovered that technologies, we were looking more on the automation and sensor side. And this is part of a world of producers that are much more structured, more much better organized business wise. And that uh, or they had customized software or they had a structure that would help them fine tune their mission. And then we realized that the vast majority of those producers was still dealing with how to integrate the information, how to build this whole loop of processes, the basic processes in their business cycle. So we fine tuned it. It's not that we realized in advance, no, that we learned on the way, right on the road. Okay, my turn now. Uh, According to the list, I represent Cardenas Validas. I am co-founder of Cardenas Validadas. We started with a vision a couple of years ago to add value to the beef chain through data, basically, to have to tell the consumer where who produced the beef, how it was produced, and in that search through the blockchain technology, we found a wonderful partner to work on developing Carnes Validadas. We work on the cloud through blockchain and through traceability, expanded traceability and tokenization for the heads of cattle, we can create what we have called a vehicle of communication, a communication channel between the first actor in the entire chain and the last one, first to last. So tokenization is identify a head of cattle digitally. It is like having a vehicle with all the papers. If you have that vehicle with papers, particularly with the cows, well, we have The producer will receive all the information of what will happen day by day, and that is the information. We see the different events. And the good thing about that is that the disruptive elements of this tool and the evolution that we saw as traceability is that not only can we register all types of information, but we can show that information packaged in certain reports. And what is most valuable is that we can share and transfer that information. That is, a producer, when they produce the steer, the calves, and when they sell to that calf for grazing or for fattening, well, then the producer in the next chain will receive that token, and on that same token can continue to share, add information, and so on and so forth until the animal reaches market. And there they consolidate the attributes they need to show the customer, the brand attributes, or differentiating the brand by genetics or by productive system or race or slaughtering method. And those are five attributes that they will show on a QR code to a consumer anywhere in the world. Oh, wonderful. The value of data. Nothing more, nothing less than for markets today and upcoming markets. Sisto, now your turn. Hello. Well, we at Jetpav, we are a digital platform for uh, beef. We understand that a big problem of producers relay has to do with the production costs. It is very common for producers to not have on hand the cost, and therefore, when they are selling the animal, they really have no idea of the profit, the economic outcome they will have. So here we start, first of all, by helping the producer to digitalize all the information. Here we call it precision livestock. And we help replace the field logbook and the paper-based records, and we exchange that for a mobile app. And with that, the producer started to gather more data and was able to know everything that was happening in individually with each head. And then they were able to integrate the data with information on the pasture capacity and and on the farm and all the production costs. We know that in livestock, when we look inside boundaries, there are many variables. It is very complex to manage. And the main point is to turn this complexity into something easier for the producer to begin to manage the farm as a business, as a company. Our work here is to make all this work much more simple. And here we are helping to integrate or communicate the app on the cell phone with other devices that can help automate the data collection and make this information ever more reliable. At the end, the main objective is for the producer to have on hand the information on the individual cost of each animal, and based on that, make decisions also on economic aspects that are not just matters of the development of the animal, but of all other aspects.
siempre se pensaba que no se podía
That's
llegar a...
very good, Sixto, because we always thought that there was no way to know the production cost. And it is possible, and technologies nowadays allow us to do that. And there's a great benefit for producers in knowing how their system is working and what other measures they can adopt to improve it.
Acá yo ahora quería invitar a Juan Martín.
I
Me
wanted to
contaron
invite Juan Martin. Maybe tell us about Pilala.
¿Qué tal, Eugenia? Bueno, muchas gracias, Alicia del Fatagro. Un gusto
Well, thank you very much.
saludarte.
Ika and Contagro,
Bueno,
nice
empezando
meeting you, and
por
it's a great
agradecerte.
pleasure being here.
Bueno,
And
de la
greetings to the
forma
ones I've
que
known for a
llegamos
while.
al
And
tema, te
the
cuento que
way
Pilagar es
I
una empresa
uh, got into the
municipal
ecosystem, let me just tell you that
que tiene
Pilagaya
una
is a
campaña
long-standing
hace
company.
más de
We
100
bought it
años
7 years ago, but Pilaga
en el
has
territorio
been
del
a
Chaco
company for over 100 years, and it's been
y
working in the
destacamos
northern part of Argentina for many years. And so we
ser una marca propia
focused on having our own brand and be able to identify everything within our lifestyle circuit or cycle, if you want to
y la
call it
verdad
somehow.
que
And
lo que venían hablando los
what
chicos recién fue
my
el principal
colleagues
problema
just
por el cual
talked about was the
empezamos
main
a meternos
problem, and
y ahora
that's
entrando un
why
poquito en
we
el tema
decided
porque
to
en dos
uh,
puntos creo que la
adopt
tecnología
a
viene
certain technology because in
de principio viene
basically
para mí
technology
a
helps
nivel de
us
producción y de productividad porque
change
tenemos
the level of
como bien
production
decías vos Abril,
productivity,
fuera
because in
de la
livestock we have
calidad
the
de las
problem
generaciones
that
de
the
datos
time for generation and collection of data is usually at the end of the cycle. And I think the digital technology nowadays, like with any other company that that records things in real time, we can now measure the production of the two most important variables, the weight of the animal and the foraging and whatever input we may have in real time. And so that is the key of the business, and digital technology in that sense will allow us to
van en esa línea.
have
Y otro
this
punto, la parte comercial. Yo me acuerdo que
handy.
nos encontramos en nuestra empresa con
And
un gran problema
in our
de poder
company,
conocer
we found that we had a big problem. How can we tell our consumers the history of Pilaga, of the five generations that had preceded us, and the entire production cycle that we have as an integration company, where we have animals that use natural pastures in the Northwest with megathermic systems, integrating this with agriculture so that we can be much more productive. And there's a stigma that there is much inefficiency. So we had lots to tell the consumers. And of course, Validada, which was what we did, helped us upload all this information so that the consumers can see it. So I'm totally convinced that digital tools are the solution or are a great step so that the livestock can increase its
Muchas gracias.
reputation and production.
A finales
Wow,
de los
thank you very
90,
much.
como les contaba
Imagine
antes
towards the end
en
of the
la
90s,
webinar,
before we started the webinar, we were just
cuando me
saying
tocó trabajar
that when
en
I
estos
was
temas parecía
working
como
on these
imposible, ¿no?
topics, it
Que uno
seemed
pensara una
that it was
ganadería
impossible for us to think
digitalizada,
of a digitalized
productos que se puedan
livestock
identificar, que se puedan
farming,
cazar, que se
the
puedan
things that
subir
could be
animales,
traced
que
and
dentro
defined
de
and
esos procesos
followed
que también se
within the
puedan
processes so that
medir.
things
Y
can be
fíjense qué
measured.
importante lo que vos
And
decís,
I think that what you
poder
just
tener
said is
datos
very important.
que
Being able
muestren
to have data
edad
that
del
actually
animal,
combine
el
the
peso, la
age
ganancia de
and
peso,
the
ajustar
weight,
la
weight
carga, eso
gain,
hace que vos
and load
manejes mucho
of the
más
animal,
eficientemente
that
toda la cadena de tu
allows you to
ecosistema que forma
adjust the
parte de tu
whole
establecimiento productivo,
system
pero además
of
le
your
podés
production
mover
site.
al
And
negocio
it also
un
gives a
montón,
value to the
porque
business that is
justamente
very
vas a poder tomar
important
mejores
because you
decisiones, vas a
can
tener
make
menores
better
pérdidas,
decisions, you will have
tener un
less
manejo
losses,
en
and you
términos
will
de
be able to
productos.
handle everything
Y acá
much
quería tocar
better
otro
in a
tema,
much more
antes de
adjusted
pasarle la
way. And
palabra
before
a
giving the
Federico,
floor to
quería preguntarle
Federico,
con
and
Diego
this was
y
something
con
else that we were
ustedes,
talking with
con el
Diego
concepto
and
de
with
tener
the
a los
rest of you,
animales
this of
identificados.
having the
¿Les
animals
sirve
identified. Is
económicamente,
it good from the
marketingmente, de
economic
acceder a
standpoint to
mercados?
have access
Y
to
contanos, Diego, un
markets?
poco tu
And
percepción
Diego,
de esto
tell us
que
about your
decíamos,
perception. What we were
podemos utilizar
talking
los
about. Well,
animales como
can we
pareja
use
de
animals
que
for a
también luego
future
pensarlo,
sale?
¿no? Tenemos los
Because it's
animales
not crazy to
identificados,
think about
sabemos
that.
lo que
We have
queremos.
identified the animals, we know
¿Podemos
what we
poner
have.
precio por
Can we
adelantado?
put a price to it in advance?
Gracias
Oh,
por la
wow.
pregunta
Yes.
porque
Excellent
la
question.
respuesta a todo eso es
Thank
sí.
you. The answer to all your questions is
Nosotros
yes.
entendimos que
We
a medida que
understood
avanzamos con el
that the
proyecto
more we moved forward in the
el
project,
token bank
starting
iba
2 years
tomando
ago,
identidad
the token,
que
the
tenía
cow
que
token,
uno
was
ya se volvía
gaining
transversal.
an identity that it was going to
Esto se
be
transformaba en un
a
token bank
good.
para determinar
And
la
so
identidad
turning this
registral.
cow
El
token
punto es
to
que
an
se acelera, por
asset,
ejemplo,
the idea
junto
is
con
to say that Juan Martinez was the first to insure it, and we also have reproducers that have guaranteed their cells, and so they can have a custody guarantee and have what we know as a active token that is a registered property that will help us for several things, and that is particularly for the financial world. Today we you said that we have 417 million of heads of cattle in Latin America. The figure that I have is that in Argentina we have 53 million heads. It's almost 30,000 billion dollars, which is equivalent to what the Central Bank of the Republic of Argentina has. Probably it's not much, but that's what we have. And it can be used as collateral for the financial system. The same thing happens in the entire Latin American region. And we found that in Latin American region, there are not many livestock insurances, only maybe 20, 30% of all countries. And we found Mexico that has 80%. And you say, wow, we have a huge opportunity for this identification and for this transformation of the cow token into a registered property to be used in the financial system or to pre-sell it. To pre-sell, as you said, and forward, or to the consumer or the end consumer, somebody who chooses a specific animal and then receives the meat of that animal. So this is something that we see as something very feasible, possible, and uh, maybe in the next 6, 7 months it's going to be enforced at least for Cardenas Validas. Well, awesome. I think that is going to be a great leap for all systems, not just for beef, but for all the other agri-food chains. And the last comment before moving into Federico, we can say that world is now consuming more animal-based protein. We all want to eat meat now. We all want to have our glass of milk. So private digitalization can help food systems to help consumers attain these proteins. Yes, that's true, Eugenia. And on the same line, we have a greater consumption and there are more we have more strict consumers, and I think digital technologies may be the only tool that can actually harmonize the evolution between demand for animal-based proteins with the production systems. And now, let me just change the focus of this conversation a little bit. I'm going to put the hat of a producer. I'm not a livestock farmer, but I am a Greek farmer in the in one part of Argentina. And I would like to hear your opinion. And Juan, this time you're going to be last because I'm going to ask you differently. But Ignacio, Diego, and Shisto, tell me, if somebody is interested in using your technologies based on on their benefits, how should they go about it? How do they begin? How can you help them in the process? And how far do you actually assist them? Because what we are seeing nowadays in this early stage of digitalization is that there is an amazing supply of lots and lots of technologies that are all very good, but their use is very low. The digitalization is still very low, not only in livestock, but in others too. So I would like for us to talk briefly about this. How could somebody start incorporating these technologies? I know Chisto. May I begin? Yes. So I think that first we have a cultural issue before talking about technology adoption. We help with management practices. And this is a more important barrier than the barrier for the adoption of technology. For example, the individual identification of livestock, it is very common for the producer not to take into consideration the benefits for the management of a property, and then traceability is a consequence. But normally, in that case, we start in a much more constructive way and try to help them understand the benefits with regards to good managerial practices. And this is a fundamental piece to have precision livestock. So we first provide a lot of knowledge and we play a role here for the production of knowledge in a much more consultative way before actually going into the adoption of the technology in itself. Thank you very much, Shisto. So it is clear that it's not only a matter to put the technology on the table, but at some point, since we are in right now in the very early stages, to walk together with those who will be adopting the technology so that we can share with them not only the technology but knowledge too. So, Ignacio, I want to listen to your perspective. And let me ask you something from the first round. Can you give us a bit more information about the solutions or technologies that you provide so that you can also give us the information on how somebody who wants to start working, let's say tomorrow with you? Yes, I answered the question, but I never told you who we are. So we develop technological solutions for livestock. We are called Cattler. We have three different products in development. We have also a automation system for parts, which is like a kit that is used uh, that automate and record everything that is going on. Also, we have monitoring and prediction of weight based on images, which is what has taken us longest to develop, and it's still in the prototype status. And the last one that we developed, but that gave us the most important pivot in terms of market size or share, is a management system with similar to what Sisto does in Brazil for producers from the operational standpoint that allows you to accompany operations and at the same time analyze the data of said operations. Perdón, ese intérprete se está cortando un poco. I would like to seize this opportunity to say why we have those three products, and that's pretty much the road we followed. And it, we that's the way we dealt with each customer was different, so it helped us understand that not all customers are wearing the same shoes and so some people are focused on maybe fine tuning some things while others are, because of the system, uh, because the system is not ready yet to provide all the different solutions in a single place, is uh, doing so. And so, going back to your question, each client thinks differently, and we address each client differently because each client and each producer will it discovers little by little what they want. Sometimes they don't know what they want or what they need, so they have a general idea. And so this is pretty much a mutual discovery process with a lots of mutual trust until the client and the technological provider or supplier can say, okay, this is the pathway. And I think there is an initial stage of like startup like ours. You may have some more are kind of we're on our way to standardizing it more because we're just getting started. So uh, just support something that Sister was saying. There are certain things that may be cultural barriers, but in the end, everybody's trying to understand their own processes and trying to overcome the barriers that they find along the way and understand how much money they make. Because Oftentimes people don't know that, or maybe fill up the gaps that they have in their business. I don't know if I was able to answer your question. Yes, it was very clear.
Down those lines, I would like to ask Diego. He also wears the producer hat. We have known each other for quite some time. I went to Chacabuco, and as of tomorrow, I have a rodeo of 80, 90 animals. And I say, okay, I want my production to be traceable via blockchain. So I talked to Diego. How would we start? What would you recommend?
Bien,
Okay.
bien, te voy a, la respuesta a todo eso es sí,
The response to all of that, yes, yes, everything can be done
nuestra plataforma
because in principle, our
para que
platform was
una persona que
developed
tenga 10 cabezas
so that for someone that has 10 heads of cattle
las miles de
or
cabezas que pueda tener,
thousands,
pueda ser, es una plataforma
the
totalmente accesible,
platform is
incluso
very easy to
en las
use
redes de Zoom,
and
en Webex.
it is
Bueno,
used all over the place today.
vamos a hacer un big picture
Let's
un
see the big
poquito más
picture to
profundo
better
de lo que
understand
nosotros
first how
entendimos
we
como la
see
adopción de
the
tecnologías
adoption of
y
technologies.
en determinado momento nosotros entendimos que la complejidad
We understood that the
es quiénes son nuestros
complexity we were
clientes,
facing
quiénes
is
son nuestros
who is our
consumidores,
customer,
qué
who
uso de
are our
tecnología
customers,
y
and how
cómo
they
nosotros
use that
queríamos
technology.
satisfacer nosotros
So,
al consumidor
okay,
final.
we
Teníamos
wanted
que
to
explorar
satisfy the end
por
consumer.
qué y
Okay,
cómo quería
for that,
operar
we have to go and see
ese
what the end
ecosistema.
consumer
Después
wants,
eso
get
tiene
all
que
that
llegar
information,
al
and then
consumidor,
we
tiene
have
que
to
llegar
tell
al
that
precio, tiene
to
que
the
llegar al
marketer, and the
usuario,
marketer
al
has to
productor.
go and ask that from the
Entonces
producer.
es un sistema
So it is
complejo
a complex system
de poder que todos los eslabones
to
estén
ensure that
alineados
all links are
para poder
aligned
contar una historia.
to
Eso
tell
no
that
es fácil.
story. That
Después
is
de que
not
tenemos
easy.
ese entendimiento, como es una
So,
tecnología
since this is
disruptiva, somos los
a
primeros,
disruptive
o por lo menos
technology,
en
we
América
are the
Latina,
first, or at
y en
least in
otras partes del
livestock,
mundo,
we are the first ones that are doing this in the world.
este
We
punto
also understand that
que nosotros
the
cuando
learning
conocemos
curve,
tecnología decimos, bueno, mira,
the
esto es
adoption of
innovador,
technology curve, we
hay
say,
un
okay, there are 2 or 3%,
2 o 3% de early adopters
12,
y el resto
13% adopters, and the rest
estamos
comes
hablando
later.
a los
So,
innovadores.
who are we
Nosotros
talking to
primer
today?
contacto que tenemos
The
es el
innovators.
famoso
Our first
innovador.
contact is okay, Federico Albert talked to
Aproxima
me, and I know he is an innovator.
5
Juan
minutos me di
Martin
cuenta
called
que era
me, and
innovador. Y después
5 minutes later, I realized he was
lo que
innovator.
necesitamos es
So, what
feedback
we need
y
is the
saber que
feedback,
vamos a construir
and we know
juntos
we will
la
together
historia de
we will
mañana.
build
Lo que nosotros
the
tenemos es
history
un
of
canal de
tomorrow. What
comunicación
we have is a
y
communication
los
channel,
datos
and the data
va a
input
surgir de esta
will
plataforma de
basically
Cisco
come
o vamos a
from the
llamarla
Cisco
que es una
platform
consultora
or
de
from
Ignacio,
Ignacio Solutions
mirando
or from
con un teléfono
Juan
celular
Martin's
apenas de
affidavit or a cell
biodiversidad,
phone with
porque
a photograph of
sabemos que hay un
biodiversity,
consumidor
because
que
we know there
demanda
is a consumer that wants to
la
see
cabeza de ganado
the
pastando al lado de un yacaré.
animal eating
Altamente
a pasture,
sofisticado
grazing
y
out
eso lo vamos
there
a ir
in Chacare.
aprendiendo
So all of
juntos
these things are things we will
cómo
learn
contar esa historia
together.
y cómo
How? And then we will
llevárselo
determine how to
al
tell that
consumidor
story,
y
take that story to the
satisfacerle
consumer,
y lo
and
mismo en el sistema
satisfy
financiero,
their needs. And
porque
the same with the financial
hacemos una
system. They
prueba de
can tell me,
salidas de la
okay, give
cabeza de
me
ganado.
evidence
Bueno,
that
mira,
that head
va a ser
of cattle
pasan las
exists.
caravanas al lado del
Well,
tractor y
the
una
caravans go
tonelada de
by,
azúcar.
and okay,
Entonces,
we have the camera
a este
as
canal
they
de
come
comunicación
to
que está
drink water,
relacionado.
for example.
Y
So
esa
that
es la
is
respuesta.
part of the
Hoy
communication channel
colaboramos con
in
los
Cardenas
innovadores y
Validas.
estamos
Today
aprendiendo
we
de
work
ellos.
with the innovators, with the ones we are
Mañana con early adopters vamos a
learning
estar
with.
mirando a Juan Martín
Today,
y
tomorrow,
otros
we will
socios.
be
Después
working
vendrán
with
el resto,
adopters,
pero
and
hoy
then the
estamos en
rest will
esa
come along.
instancia.
But that
Y
is the
nosotros
level we are
tenemos
at today. And as to scale
tres
itself,
tradiciones que queremos
our vision
democratizar
is
a
that we
través de
must
tecnología.
democratize
Tiene que
access
ser
to
muy barato, las
technology.
barreras de
It
entrada
should be very
en
inexpensive, and
estos
barriers
momentos
to
en
entry should
cuanto
be
a
minimal
posibilidad
as
de
to
adopción.
costs and
Después
possibility of
está el
adoption.
tema de
And then we
lo
have
que se llama el costo
the
de la captura del dato, ¿no?
the
Es
cost
decir,
of data
no es lo mismo
capture.
ir a medir
It is not the
una
same to
reserva
go out
natural
and
con un
measure and take a
teléfono
photograph
inteligente y decirle
with
está
a
al lado de mi
smartphone
casa,
and say,
que
okay,
ir a
this
medir, por ejemplo,
is
la
in
temperatura
Chacare,
orgánica
or
o
go to measure
medir
the organic
el nivel del
manner,
monte o no del monte
matter,
de
or
un
the
predio va a
uh,
necesitar, va a necesitar costo.
cleaning of
Bueno,
pasture
cada
land.
uno va a tener
Well,
su costo.
so each bit of data will have a cost related to it. Excellent, Diego, very clear. Now I move to Juan Martin. because he's one of the early adopters. He is way ahead of the curve, and Juan Martin is certainly one of them. That is why, among other reasons, we invited. So I guess I have the same question for you, but from a different angle. Okay, you, Juan, you who took the first step in incorporating technologies, those proposed by Diego and Ignacio, what did you experience about being an early adopter of technologies? They perhaps were not even mature enough when you started. So I guess the question is, how were you able to work together with them, either developing or giving feedback for the technology to specifically focus on the issues you were facing? Well, first of all, let me tell you that I started in this world about 3 years ago. In the company, well, we are a family company. We have no culture. I'm not a computer nerd by no means. So I identified the problem in livestock. We identified it was very difficult to gather all that information, measure it, and pass it on. I traveled to Australia. I have mentioned this before, where I saw that the application of technology was something very, in the very near future, very easy. So upon returning to my country, I jumped into it. The big change, well, we are still far from having an absolute solution, but it transformed the company, not me. It transformed the work teams. We have to see a camera measuring weight in Santiago del Estero and having people understand that the level of information will come from a different angle and not to them. So the teams will work on something else. My siblings, for example, will see that this is a possibility to start. It really changed our perspective in that sense. And Yusa said, we are far from a solution, but it has certainly helped us culturally as a business. Has been a whole change in culture to dare to instead of having the vocation to. And the truth is, the exchange has been very rich. This one on one conversation with the teams, both in Pilaga and Cardenas Validas, has helped the company very much. I will use the example of Cardenas Validas. We started launching our brand as Pilaga, and we linked the project to ensure to insure the animals. So the insurance agency was seeing the different all the elements. So and they saw the irrigation system and the cattle feed, and they said, okay, then you have a 20% less risk, and that helped us a lot very much. So the biggest benefit is how it went transforming the whole team, all the way from management down to all the teams. Very good, Juan Martin. In preparatory meetings, you were mentioning, and I will offer the floor to Eugenia to start wrapping this up, but you were mentioning it is not as complicated as it seems. And you just repeated that. We are much closer to applied technologies than what we really believe. And the scale is not necessarily an inconvenience. In fact, what we need is a bit of a willingness and curiosity to plunge into it, and things will flow. So I thought it was very valuable in our comments. I know Eugenia has tons of questions, so I offer the floor back to her for this last round. Thank you, Federico. Let me take up two words: curiosity, willingness. It is not impossible to start to transform, as Juan Martin was saying, transform what we have been doing, getting out of our comfort zone and trying to do something different, always in favor of improvements. And this has to do with the transformation of agri-food systems that we seek and we're working on day by day. Digitalization brings us much closer to this. As and I repeat what Diego Sisto and Ignacio have said about co-innovating, trying to understand how we can identify producer demand. And this is something progressive. Today, I identified that they need X, and tomorrow they need Y. So build up all that change, a continuous chain of identification of what the sector needs. You, fortunately, are part of this sector, part of this group of entrepreneurs. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing this space for Fontagro and Ica. Federico, if you believe, I guess my last question, I guess, is a contribution for all of you. Perhaps you could mention a challenge and an opportunity, something that keeps you awake at all times. What would you say? Sixto, and then Diego, Ignacio, and Juan Martin. Well, I believe the biggest challenge of connectivity for us is most important. So we can make this much more popular for small producers. It is important for them to have better access to the internet out in the rural areas. Technologies are ever more available, but if there is no internet, there uh, uh, the, they cannot adapt the digital technologies, and that is a big challenge. As an opportunity, I believe that producers will have data and more digital oriented. They will have a lot more information than they ever had before. Our customers, we have several cases on this word today. They have much more data that they ever imagined would be possible through technologies like we have at Jetpav. So it is a big opportunity to develop algorithms, artificial intelligence, based on all the data. And more than a management tool, we have ways of predicting potential problems or situations or issues. And with this, we can have an ever more sustainable production, ever more profitable, obviously, and bringing ever more benefits and economic and social impact in favor of producers. I believe this is our main objective here at Jetpav. We believe that digital technologies are the last frontier to turn uh, beef uh, livestock as or turn it into a bigger potential and make this an ever more sustainable production. This is a big opportunity, and in the future, it will be very well valued. It will add much more value to the product for more sustainable production.
Bien,
Thank you very much. Sixto and Diego? Well, following up with what Sixto just said, we believe that the main challenge that we are facing at this time is integrating the financial world to livestock in a definitive way. And with the financial world, we would have lots of guidelines so that we can harmonize sustainable production and sustainable finances. So we believe that the main challenge is to be able to show the financial world that we exist so that they can actually believe in producers and be able to reach those who have 5 heads, 500 heads, 1,000 heads, and be able to be part of the financial world and be able to become aligned with finances. And in terms of the opportunity, I believe, I understand that producers have always produced beef and now they can produce beef plus data. We are looking at the registration of data and all the tools for data registration. And this data will allow producers is to empower themselves and be able to show themselves under a different light, show that not everybody is the same. And so producers who can actually tell and show that what they say is what they do will be better positioned in the market for a certain market to buy from them, to have access to a better price, or to have access to a sustainable financial life. So the big opportunity here is to produce beef and data, and we are totally aligned about that. Thank you very much, Diego. Beef, data, connectivity, and the financial world. Ignacio? Well, first of all, support everything that my colleagues have said. And to summarize, I would say that the challenge that we still have, I mean, all the companies that are producing technology nowadays, is that production is still a very small part of the total market. We're still developing, building the market. And so, in that sense, we are partners in the same adventure. And in that sense, we still have a long way to go in order to growth. There's room for growth, and so we need to understand which are the vectors. And Diego and we all are finding these vectors and following different pathways, but see what will help or make producers join this massively. And the our adventure is try to break free from those barriers. And there is also an opportunity because once that massive data is available, and we will have a network, probably activity among producers, which will help producers to be able to provide different services and combined services. And I think there's no limit to that. I think this move is just getting started, and it compares and possibly and the opportunities compared to the challenges we have as well. Juan Martin, well, from the producer standpoint, I believe that the challenge is to motivate them to innovate. And I think we need the help from institutions for them to understand this need and how this can help them find the problems. And I believe that those are maybe the challenges. We can get the help of institutions to be able to multiply that, and then the opportunities are clear from the production standpoint. We're going to be much more efficient if we incorporate digital technology that will then help us have a greater production with less resources, and particularly in the livestock sector, the has a the spotlight and its impact on the environment. And so it will also solve some trading or commercial issues, and it will provide much more financing and liquidity to this market, which is not very liquid. So I believe that the opportunities are very clear and how digital technology can help us in all of this. Thank you, Martin. I believe your comments are very valuable. How to reach the producer, how to improve the adoption process, and how, based on the information that we have on production systems, we can actually be constant on how we produce and so that we can certify it and so that we can constantly provide more resilience, sustainability, inclusivity to agriculture and the agri-food systems in general. This is a wonderful panel. Definitely the sector of livestock and beef and meat uh, need you all. We are very happy that you for your that you had the willingness and the curiosity to develop these tools. It's like going from science to business, something that is so good and so necessary. So let, please, let's stay in touch. You are part of the Fontagro and Ica community. Fede, I give you the floor back. Well, there's not much to add. I think our conversation was really nice. I enjoyed it very much. It is a great pleasure to talk to the protagonists and the main players of digitalization. This is what these webinars are all about. And so hopefully this will help many of those who are listening to this. And going back to something that Juan said and something that Eugenia repeated, just to reiterate on this idea, is that institutions need to help to spread, communicate all these technologies and help producers with the barriers they may have when trying uh, uh, to adopt these technologies. And so after this conversation, we can definitely stay in touch, not only with the panelists, but also with those who were listening, so that we can definitely work together to foster this process for digitalization so that it's dynamic and quick so that we can have some early benefits and along the way nobody is left behind because this is definitely poses a challenge. Some may be ready for it, some are not, but so we just need to make sure that everybody takes advantage of those benefits. So I we have from on my end, that's all I had to say. We have another webinar coming up. Eugenio, may I say something?
Me llamó mucho la atención el que dijo
Well,
Ignacio
I
y
liked
creo que
what
totalmente
Ignacio
dado
said.
el gran desafío y
And
oportunidades, es
faced
fundamental
with
que
the
nosotros
challenges and the opportunities, I
consultemos
believe
con los
it is
diferentes
necessary for
proyectos
us, the technology
para hacer
companies, to
frente
work
a estos
together
desafíos
so that we
y
can
que con
face the
eso
challenges.
y que
I believe in
podamos
that
hacer
truly.
interacciones
And I believe that in the future we will be able to
complementarias, regionales,
integrate and
nacionales.
supplement
Y
our solutions in a
quiero
much better way.
agradecer
And so I would like
nuevamente
to
por estar
thank
aquí, por
the
compartirnos.
opportunity to be here with
Aquí
all of
independiente
you.
del
I
país,
think
está en
that
nuestras
regardless of
manos
the
y que
country,
tenemos
be
que
it Brazil, Argentina, it doesn't matter, we just need to work together. Yes, absolutely. And Fotagro is working with the entire region of Latin America and the Caribbean and as the executive secretary of Fontagro, I am more than willing to welcome all the different ideas and possibilities for joint efforts from your companies, from your experiences for the rest of the countries. As I was saying before, we are part of the same family. Let's work together, let's develop together, or let's develop things together. And the doors are open always. So now I just want to mention the next webinar, which is going to be about water,
Nuevas herramientas para la
new
gestión
technologies for water management on August 18th. So we are looking forward to joining you again for a wonderful conversation like today's. So thank you all. And this is also going to be Fontagro projects. So it is important for you to see everything that we're doing in Fontagro with our researchers, technicians, the producers that participate. So let's look forward for the 18th so we can talk about modernization tools for efficient water management in agriculture. Can we close with a picture? Yes, of course. So we can just say goodbye and
Ya,
have
una
the
foto
picture
enorme.
taken at the same
Un
time.
abrazo enorme.
Bye bye. Thank you. Hugs.
Muchísimas gracias a todos. Chao, muchísimas gracias a todos.
Bye bye. Thank you all.
Chao, gracias.
Gracias.
Thank
Muchísimas
you.
Muchísimas
gracias.
gracias.
Un gustazo.
Thank you
Igualmente.
very, very much.